Hey, Jeremy, welcome to the show. You're welcome.
Good evening.
I guess you saw my little blooper.
That's good.
Yeah, so I had just started and I had something else in my mind and it just came out completely wrong. So let's kick it off with the kind of come up with a little intro for you. Welcome everyone to the Spotters Podcast. Our guest has served 20 years in the United States Air Force, traveled to 30 countries, and has attended over 150 air shows. He's worked closely with the F-15 Eagle or Strike Eagle and the F-16 Fighting Falcon. Let's welcome Jeremy to our show. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Oscar. Really excited to be here. Excited to chat about all things aviation.
It's going to be a great show, I believe. Thank you again for your service. I know you turned 20 in March, but I think it's awesome that you've served a full 20 years by the time you retire. A lot of young kids just get in and they go in for 4 years, and I thank them also for their time that serving. But it's really an accomplishment to do a full 20.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a long road, but very rewarding along the way.
What led to you deciding to join the Air Force in the first place?
Well, that's a great question. If you would Adam and Eve it was actually a air show. So when I was 9, Dad took me to a air show in Yakima, Washington. I'm originally from Spokane, Washington, up in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up around Fairchild and watching B-52s fly over my house. And that particular air show in 96, so we're coming up on a 30-year mark from that. Went to the air show. We got front row seats. We had family friends that were photographers, actually, which is kind of funny. And the photography aspect of what I've done in air shows as well. And the Blue Angels were there, and that was cool. I did get to see JATO. So Fat Albert doing the JATO. That was the only time I saw that, back with their old C-130 Echo model, I think it was, or T. And then really the spark, Oscar, was the F-16 Viper West demo team at a Hill Air Force Base. And just the gray jet, the afterburner, the noise, the narration, I was hooked. I knew right then and there that I wanted to work on the F-16, that I wanted to go to Hill and be a crew chief in the Air Force. And so that was really kind of the beginning. And then about 10 years later, 2006, found myself going to work on the F-16 at Hill Air Force Base as a brand new crew chief. So, yeah.
That's really awesome. So you were passionate about air shows even before you got in the Air Force. Did your time in the Air Force kind of like reinforce that, and kind of made you want to continue doing air shows with Hill, or like more outside of the Air Force community?
All of the above. Being military, there are times that you're granted access. And so like we'd kind of talked about before in the intro, in 2014 at Hill, Public Affairs had sent out some photos, as they do sometimes, that wasn't updated airplanes that the performers were flying. And I had pictures where I knew what they were flying. And so I found myself at a meeting with Public Affairs and just said, hey, like, I don't know if you have time to change it or anything, but like, here's some information you should probably know about the performers. And they readily accepted that and then said, hey, do you want to go, like, you want to help us out or whatever, and go to Weber State University or whatever and pass out some flyers for the air show? I'm like, sure. Because the thing was, if you help out before the air show, then you don't have to flip burgers the weekend of the air show, which means I can enjoy it, right? So that was word of the wise there. Didn't have to tell me twice. And then out of that, randomly, Public Affairs came back to me and said, hey, we have this opportunity. Do you want to take it? Yes. And so in 2014, I actually got to fly in the C-31 of the Golden Knights during their afternoon performance. So it was like a 2-hour flight at 9,300 feet above Hill. So recently I posted a static display picture on my page, and that's from that very flight. So yeah, it definitely magnified, if anything, the desire to be around air shows and military aircraft and civilian performers and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm looking at that area view right now. That's pretty awesome, and that's from 9,300 feet. You could see pretty much all the ramp. You have the AWACS on there, C-17, C-5s, the Freds, KC-46, B-1. Really gives you a good size perspective of all the military assets that we have. So that's a really awesome shot. Oh, someone actually put that in your comments. I can spot a C-5, B-1, KC-10. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, we played scavenger hunt. See what you can pick out.
It's like where's Waldo with the F-16s?
Yeah, that's right.
So is there a particular memory from deployment or service that you find yourself reflecting on now that you're more focused on air shows?
A lot of probably like my alert launches. So during alert, it's kind of hair on fire, typically less than 3 minutes. I've done that in Iraq on the F-16. I've done that on in Iceland. That's a recent post as well on the F-15. And then I even did it on the F-16 at home station at Hill while we were part of the O&E mission, or the Operation Noble Eagle. And so we had a high value asset from DC in the area, and our unit was tasked with oversight and kind of overwatch. And so we just maneuvered our F-16s and would often alert launch them to go scramble and get rid of a Cessna or whatever had crossed over into the airspace. And so just that level of attention to detail, and then you think to like a civilian performer, that's 6 to 8 minutes typically is kind of the average of a civilian performer, just like a single aerobatic airplane, right? And so it's a lot of attention to detail for an acute amount of time that you're flying or whatever, not these long drawn out cargo missions, which are equally important, but not as hair on fire, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah, I see you have a little series here on your page. It's Chalks and Coffee, Tall Tales from the Tarmac. Tall Tales, like you're exaggerating a little bit, or pretty much, I mean, withholding for OPSEC, but these are not really tall tales. These are actually tales from the tarmac in your
Yeah.
time in service, huh?
As I come to the close of the chapter of my time in the Air Force, I thought it would be fun to come up with some sort of series. And I really like coffee. And chalks are, somebody didn't know, chalks are the little wooden blocks of sometimes plastic, but wood works better, that we put in front of the tires of the aircraft so they don't roll away on ice. And so chalks and coffee just kind of had a nice ring to it as far as that. And then, use AI, as a lot of people do, to kind of have the tall tales from the tarmac to help me out on the scope of that. But yeah, these are actual stories of things that happened in my time in the Air Force.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just running away from on ice. I mean, they use the chalks on dry temps or tarmacs, and I believe most of the time the brakes are off on these jets so they can be moved around easily. So, and that's just chalks in general, used as a brake assist. Man, you have such awesome photos from your time. A lot of air show photos. That dusty photo you have, working with CENTCOM out there in the Middle
Mhm.
East, and the air refueling. That one is really awesome of the F-15. If you haven't figured out by checking out the channel, the F-15 is kind of my favorite. We had them here as an alert National Guard squadron, and they've converted to fives, and we kind of covered that a little bit on the last episode.
Mhm.
How we want to have a good variety, even though
Yep.
everything's transitioning to a single airframe.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm really enjoying this little series you got going on here.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's fun to tell my story in hopes that people are inspired, that people can identify with that, and maybe some other people are even led to share some of their stories of their time in the military, right? Because I think there's value added to that. And the cool part about legacy is that the story needs to be retold in order for it to carry on. And so this is just kind of a way to keep that legacy going as I said, kind of come to the closure of my chapter in the Air Force.
How's that transition going as you start your process of getting out of the Air Force and get into civilian life?
That's a really great question. It's a work in progress. I'll tell you that. I have days where I am super elated and feel like I run the world, and there are other days where I'm really reflective, and it's actually really sad because there's a point where when you take off the uniform, even after 20 years, that you're taking off a piece of you. In October of this next year, I'll still be wearing the uniform, or not this next year, this year, because I finally
Yeah.
made it to 2026. So in October of this year, I will have actually been in the Air Force longer than I wasn't in my lifespan. And so
Wow.
you got to think like that is a weighty thing to realize that these brave men and women that are my counterparts, my fellow airmen, Marines, sailors, Coast Guardsmen, Guardians now with the Space Force and Army soldiers, we really there's a piece of us that is left behind, and when you step away from that, there's just kind of this sense of loss of connection. And the military does a good job to prepare them as you can, but there's just it's a roller coaster of emotion.
Yeah. Do you know career based what you're looking at when you get out in October?
Well, the dream would be figure out something with air shows as a vocation. And that's kind of, that's where Breaks Off Air Shows came from, and or Breaks Off Media prior to that, and kind of leading up. Realistically, I'm probably looking at some sort of instruction. So my current job, I talk about it a little bit, but my current job is actually an instructor. So I'm not a flight instructor. I spent about 3.5, almost 4 years teaching brand new maintainers how to work on all 21 airframes in just the Air Force. So I would have classes of 18 students and have KC-46, KC-135, F-15, and F-16. And then out of that, because we have counterparts and partner nations that fly that airframe, or airframes, really all of them together, I would have international partners in my class. And it was a 24-day class, and we taught them, I always like to say, this is what a tool is, and this is how not to be a tool. Send them on their way to go do great things in the Air Force. And then just about a year ago, I transitioned to now, I have the unique opportunity and privilege of teaching instructors that are then going to go out into various classrooms in the Air Force. And so now I'm training the trainer, as it were, from my experience in the actual schoolhouse. And I'd like to continue doing that. I can as a civilian. There's some stipulations, and is the government hiring? Is it shut down? Is there a job? But that would be the goal, is to kind of step into that, and then out of that continue to build some sort of vocational air show entity within that in the region. Yeah.
Portfolio, yeah. Is there now? I don't know how it is being a crew chief working on aircraft in the Air Force. My background is a little bit of aircraft maintenance, going to school for that.
Mhm.
Now, when you get out of the Air Force, do you have like an AMT certificate that kind of comes with you, or do you have to go and take the test with the FAA and get your AMT certificate?
That would be that's a great question. That is something I would have to go and do. I could do it in my time, but kind of the juice worth the squeeze. And while it's a really great feather to have in your cap, you just kind of weigh in, like, is that really the vocation that I want to go into?
Yeah.
And then, because that's some time. That would be some weeks, excuse me, to commit to that. And there's cool, well, I say cool, it's called Air Force Cool. There are programs that would actually help fund that for me while I'm in the Air Force. So there's really a draw to get it, but finding the right time to do that while still preparing for something that's more viable and actually like step into is kind of the weight that I'm looking at. I do have my GROL, so I have gotten that, the ground radio operator license. And then there are certifications that I have that kind of stick with you. Like, I mean, I was up to Engine 1 qualified. I've blade blend on my certificate of training and things like that. So there's a lot of like towing aircraft. There's some things that are translatable that I could potentially find a job at an airport to do, and then pursue with GI Bill, or after the AMT AMP.
Yeah.
But no, I don't have it as of today.
Yeah. I mean, after 20 years of working on aircraft, do you want to do another 20, 30 years of working on aircraft?
Yeah,
And
no.
most of the people are going to work on, smaller aircraft, or if they're with an airline, they're going to work, cleaning out whatever 7.3 or something, or
Yeah,
changing brakes on a 7.5,
yeah.
so
All the fun things.
there is I do know a guy that works out of Homestead Air Force Base, or Air Reserve Base, and he actually
Mhm.
got a job with the FAA doing, nav aid maintenance and, other navigation devices. But he works with the FAA. I mean, now that's a government job again, good benefits, job security, but you have to kind of weigh in, is the government going to shut down? Am I going to have a
Yeah.
job? I mean, technically, yes, you have a job. You just get delayed on your paychecks. But there's that route. Also, you could join another federal agency
Mhm.
and continue working for them. Working for an air show seems a little on the hard side, coming from if I was just doing maintenance. I mean, I do kind of like air traffic analysis at work, so there's not really that of a transition for me. What goals do you have now that you didn't have while in the Air Force?
Oh gosh. Well, get a job. That's a big one, because the 20 years I haven't written a resume. I haven't really applied for anything, and if I did, it was like an interview to make sure that I was the right fit for the job, not like a true civilian interview, right? I haven't done any of those things in a long time. Definitely like retire well. That almost sounds cliche, but it's like senioritis, right? Like it would be easy to throw in the towel and say, I'm done with the Air Force, and I'm done with the military, and I don't need to uphold standards or let standards go by the wayside. But it's a daily choice to remain diligent and really proudly wear the uniform till the end. And not that you wouldn't, but there are times where it's just easy. I don't want to go into work. I'll be 5 minutes later or whatever because I'm done. But you gotta maintain that.
Yeah.
So the goal is to retire well. Another goal would be probably take a vacation. I haven't in a while with the family or haven't. I mean, just well, the last time we traveled was actually to October when Dad passed. So I know really appreciative of all the support that was on social media from that. And Dad he was a big air show fan and probably my number one fan in the Air Force. And so I really have a goal to probably go back to Portland to Oregon International Air Show. Bill Brock and Jonathan Whelan do an outstanding job of planning that air show. Both Hillsborough and McMinnville. Both are fun sites, and they still have a vibrant presence of F-15s. And so I think I might travel by myself and just kind of go to an air show with Dad, as it were, just kind of as a closure mark when things kind of calm down. And then, just continue serving the community and the base in whatever capacity that winds up being. But it'd be hard to just stop liking the military after 20 years. And so a goal of finding a way to continue carrying on that story, inspiring others to either choose to serve or continue to serve, and mentor and provide insights to folks that are still serving.
Is there any positions as at Hill that you can maybe work with, like the F-35 demo team, as a civilian public affairs officer?
Not that I'm aware of. And I'm currently at Shepherd too. I should say that
Okay.
I was at Hill way back. I did spend 7 years stationed there. Not that I'm aware of, but in 2024, I had the distinct privilege of helping plan and was on the executive team for the Shepherd Air Force Base Guardians of Freedom Air Show, and that was a challenge and a hoot at the same time. And they are looking at doing another air show in the next year or two, and they've actually already kind of scooped me up and invited me into some meetings and things like that. So as a civilian, if I was to find a job here, I definitely think they would probably continue to utilize me.
Yeah.
Just the skill set, the networking, and happy to do so to continue to kind of work toward a potential vocation with planning air shows or operations management, ramp agent, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, consulting or whatever it
Hmm.
needs to be. Is
Yeah.
there any air museums in that area that you can maybe be a docent of?
The closest one would probably be either up in Oklahoma City or down in Fort Worth, so about 2 hours away.
Wow.
So not outside of my wheelhouse. One or two Saturdays a month, if it provided, that would be a lot of fun. Can definitely speak to aircraft, but nothing too huge right here in the Wichita Falls area.
What's the one thing that people don't understand about the air show world?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think one thing they don't understand, amongst many, is that um, I'm
So
going to
it'd
have to take a
be
minute.
it'd either be community pilots, production. What's like the hard would be the most difficult thing to understand? I think it's to be the production, getting all the teams scheduled, working with the team schedules with everywhere else in the nation. Is there something to that effect that you've experienced?
Well, yeah, I mean, being on that's a really great point that you bring up. The behind the scenes, the planning, like what it takes to put on an air show, what we ask of our airmen, our Marines, our soldiers, or whatever type of military base it is, or even if it's a civilian air show, the amount of volunteers that's required to really put an air show on. The fact that the air show is not in control of the weather, that's definitely something that I think sometimes people are remiss because, and I mean, I understand it. You make a trip, you make a plan, but there's that. But just on the planning side, as you said, there's just a lot of like attention to detail that has to go in. Things like, I mean, I can think back to 2024 when we were planning just where we had people parking, and thinking, hey, we should probably put a porta potty out near the parking areas. And some people going, well, they don't need that. They park, they come into the air show and go, well, yeah, but what if you have that one child that just has to go to the bathroom right then? Or what if it's a long line or something, and an elderly person, like we don't know who's coming to the air show. And so how can we develop a way that's going to make it amicable for everybody and also memorable to the point that then they say, hey, you know what, I want to go back to that air show because we thought more about not just the spectacle of the airplanes and the fireworks, which is, I mean, that's the bells and whistles, right? That's the grand
Yeah.
finale. But if we can think to I don't have a vegan food truck in the area come and be available. Like, are we thinking about people's food options? I went to one military air show, Oscar, and at the time my daughter was 2, and we had a little baggie of, I think, like peanut butter crackers and some mozzarella cheese sticks. And they weren't going to let us take that food on because it wasn't food that was purchased. And I remember just talking to that person going, totally understand it. I see it in the rules. What is my 2-year-old daughter going to eat in there? And they said, okay, you can bring it in. And I thought right there, that's the mentality shift that we have to do, because we are putting on we like airshow planners and production folks, we are putting on an event, and we're serving a customer as much as we are developing ideas of how to make it something that is a spectacle in the air, if that makes sense. So I think that's
Yeah.
kind of that's the shift that needs to happen.
You bring up a good point with the porta potties. There's an air show at the end of the year here in South Florida, well, in Florida. It's called
Hmm.
the Stewart Air Show. It's normally in November, and it's been probably 2 years in a row where I forgot. I'm like, you know what? I got to get to my car. I want to get out. The show is over, and I forgot to use that porta potty that was closed. There's no line there, but there was a row of porta potties near the exit. So once you get in your
Yep.
car and you're driving, you see these porta potties in the middle of nowhere at the end of the runway. Like, oh, you know what? I'll just stop real quick.
Yep.
And it's like a lifesaver. You don't have to run into a gas station or anything. And then with the vegans, I never really thought about that as, trying to find food vendors that kind of serve as one and all. Normally you see like the carnival food. You got fries and tenders. You
Hmm.
have like they had nachos this
Yep.
year, which I made the worst mistake of having nachos while I'm like out there photographing. Like you get finger food and then now you have to touch your camera with
Greasy,
like cheese
greasy fingers,
fingers.
the best.
But I think one year they had gyros out there, and if people didn't want to have the gyro meat, you could still have a pita with salad.
Yeah.
So they kind of like covered all the bases there. But yeah, having different food trucks. I don't know if food trucks. I've seen food trucks at an air show. It's normally like a food vendor for the
Yep.
most part. But yeah, I would believe the logistics, and I think David had also brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that.
Most
I
people don't
appreciate
have
that
a
comment.
clue about the massive amounts of logistics involved. And it could be, the food, the drinks, sanitary.
Yep.
Also, you have to cater to, if it's a private air show, you have to cater to the teams that are going there.
Yep.
You have to book their hotels, you have to pay for their
Hmm.
cars, you have to pay for their fuel. There's
Yep.
a lot of funds that are being. I know a lot of people complain sometimes, oh, that air show is too expensive. I'm not going to go. But they can't pay for everything. They're
Right.
kind of supplementing that, kind of income
Yep.
to pay for the shows to attend. We were lucky this last year. I mean, we were unlucky that we had a government shutdown during this Stewart Air Show, but
Yeah.
it had the aviation community came out as a whole, and all these civilian acts decided to fill in. I think the same thing happened to Wings Over North Georgia, or yeah, North Georgia last year in
Yep.
October also. That he
Yep.
had a bunch of civilian acts that filled in for the military acts that weren't able to show up. So that's a great thing about aviation community, where it's a small community. Everyone's willing to help out when they can. But when we had the military, we got to pay for those servicemen to come down. Sometimes, you going to see that show and having to pay $20-$30 for the day
Yep.
helps that happen.
Yep, that's very, very true. And I think to your point about the civilians, I think it speaks to the professionalism that we have within the civilian act community. Very, very proud to serve alongside many of them that I know. I mean, they're friends of mine. We text, but it's just really cool. And I mean, yeah, logistics are far and wide. Even again, just as the most recent one at Shepherd, like thinking about do we have an exit route? Do we have an alternative exit route for an ambulance if we have to get somebody off that, say somebody falls down and we got to, transport them to a hospital? Are we thinking about entrance and exit routes so that people aren't in lines for 3 hours? I mean, you really got to kind of develop that trajectory and not just go, oh, we'll be fine. Very well, maybe, but you'll pay dividends of your spectator desire to come back, and I mean the reviews, right? Like that's another thing that I think is undervalued perhaps of okay, cool, what was the reach on social media, and how can we maximize or capitalize on that to the point of what do we do really well, and what can we still improve on, and what's somebody's gripe, and what's something that is actually worthwhile looking into. Because the fact of the matter is, we're not going to cater to everybody. You're gonna make somebody mad by having the vegan truck there. But if you get one person that is so impressed with the vegan as an example,
Yeah.
right, and then now they're interested in aviation, and now they want to come back, or now they want to pursue education to that point. Now, as an industry, as an aviation community, I think we've done right by them in that regard. And so how can we affect positive change and positive reinforcement by those decision making processes that we make?
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good way of looking at it. Gone to
Yeah.
150 air shows. Is
Yeah.
there any civilian demo teams that you've worked closely with that you would kind of recommend to to shows that haven't seen those demo teams?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm up to 14 civilian performers that I've worked with, either in a media capacity or in something like that. So, Kyle Franklin, the guy that steals his own airplane, as my son likes to say, I've helped him kind of stuff his Piper Cub, like take it apart, like holding the wing up above your head while he's taking apart the airplane. I've worked with SRC Air Shows, so Steve Covington, and his old Pitts Fury, which is now retired, of course, and he's coming back this year, 2026, with a new Game Bird and Fury 2.0. So really excited to see that. I've gone to Laredo and different places with him, or worked side by side. Probably most famous for the involvement that I've had with the Next Gen Eagles as their operations manager and kind of crew chiefs. In 2023, Leland and I were at like 9 of his 13 air shows his first season in just the singular Eagle. And out of that kind of cultivated a need and a place and a spot for me to come back and continue working alongside him and Tom Bramer, who now has been able to, he got selected to go fly for a major airline. So he's stepped away from the team. And Steve Covington kind of came in, and so Steve Covington and Leland are going to be flying together as Next Gen Eagles. I mean, I may be at a site or two with them in 2026, but as I get ready to retire, right, like just kind of steering and kind of going more parallel to kind of figure out what works best. So they'll have to do crew chief duties and marshal on their own, which they'll do fine at. So I've worked with him. I've worked with Brian Correll. May not be as familiar, but he's a reserve KC-46 pilot out of Wichita, Kansas. Flew a biplane. I work with Adam Baker and the Extra 300. He does some stuff with Redline. I think they're the Bro Squad or something. So yeah, I've worked with a lot of Bill Brock and the Jet Car, Mark Smith and the Fire Truck, Mark Smith and the Rolling Thunder Act. I've been my Honda CRV. I have a famous photo. I should send it to you. Somebody caught my Honda CRV out on the runway at Randolph in 2024 because they needed a chase car. And they're like, well, you're it. So they gave me the pass and got to drive my personal vehicle on as the chase car. And there I was, 85 miles an hour, chasing down to get the parachute at the end of the run. So very, very privileged and humbled to be able to work alongside these professionals. But yeah, done a lot of work with a lot of different people in different capacities.
And that sounds like a huge and a delight to take part of
Yeah.
for civilian wise. Is there any military demo teams that you've liked to watch over the years, or that you would kind of like your bucket list that you would like to work with?
Absolutely. I mean, are we talking ones that are still in existence or ones that have moved on? Because I think we'd be remiss to not bring back the F-14 demo. I still think the Air Force should pull back a C model F-15 demo before they retire that airframe. Just as we approach the 80th anniversary of the Air Force, like you can't talk about the United States Air Force and not talk about the F-15 Eagle. Like, not just because I worked on it, but that's just like it's a fact. I mean, I might be biased, but like,
Yeah, I mean, I know they have done kind of like a demonstration of the F-15EX.
yep.
I would like to see the EX do a full demo rather than a demonstration. That would be, I mean, I'm sure if somebody gets a hold of a National Guard, I think, well, I don't know if it was Mark last episode, he had said that Michigan was maybe getting the EXs in lieu of tens, or getting rid of A10s, and then they're coming
Mhm.
in with the EXs. If they want to do a demo, maybe Sun and Fun, I'm sure Oshkosh is, they would
Yep.
do it up there. That'd be nice to see. How about for your modern, more like, I mean,
Yeah,
F-15EX, those are your modern
right.
superiority. So yeah, we all want F-14s back. I would like to see F-4s come back. Uh,
So, Fighter Jets is doing that. They're the Collings Foundation and Fighter Jets, so Randy Ball, they've partnered together and they're hoping to bring the F4 to a couple air shows in 2026 and likely beyond.
yeah, I would love to see. I've been following Randy Ball for a little bit,
Yeah.
and I would love to see that F4 fly. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I'm going to make it to EAA this year, but hopefully they can get ready in like 3 months to go to Sun and Fun. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Um, we'll see if that's pretty close to get an F4 ready. But how about modern? Anything other than F-15?
Well, I mean, I'm partial to the F-16 because I spent so much time with it. So really have enjoyed watching FEMA and the current F-16 iteration team do their thing. Thrilled that it's coming back a third year. And even the iterations before that. I'm fairly close with the F-22 Laz, the F-22 demo pilot. We've done some videos together. And we'd worked together before the announcement even came out that he was going to be the demo pilot. So I really love what the Raptor is doing. I was at Hill when the F-35s came online. When we got like the first F-35 touchdown at Hill, I was there. I watched it happen and it taxi in. And Mock and her team have done a phenomenal job. And of course, Bea before that, probably most known with it. So any demo team is would be just a pleasure to work with, and even some European teams like. If I got some inside access, as it were, with either Solo Turk, the Raphael from the French, the Arme de l'Air, there's some European modern fighters that you'll see out there that would just be really fun to kind of get up and close and personal and see what they do.
Did you ever make it out to Switzerland for the Swiss air show?
I didn't. Mainly in Europe, the only air show I went to was Vocal, well, of any substance, Vocal,
Mm.
but that was 2013 when they had it was the 100th anniversary, and that was quite a show. They had the Finnish FA-18, Patrouille Suisse, the Frecce Tricolore, the Patrouille de France, the Red Arrows. They had the Polish SU-22 fitter pairs display. That was pretty cool. That was the only
Oh,
time I saw that.
I have to look that up.
Yeah, and then the Swedish historic flight brought in their Saab Viggen, their JAS 37 Viggen. So I got to see that fly, which was just crazy to see. And they do an air power demonstration like you would not believe, Oscar. They all I remember was and 10 helicopters in addition to a C-130 and a KDC-10 tanker, all converging at different points along the way in trucks and pyrotechnics, and it was an impressive sight to see for sure, among many other things. So a hind, got to see the Slough, the Greek A7, the black pirate one was on static, so I saw that, and then
That's
they had
cool.
a normal camo one. So no, I never made it to Switzerland. Would love to. Those videos are incredible.
For sure. David sent some information here saying that from fighterjets.com that the F-100 is going to be at the Sun and Fun. The F-4 is tentative still.
Yeah, well, a lot of work. Hats off to those guys that are tirelessly working to ensure safety and to get that thing in front of the public. But the F-100 will be cool as well. I saw that at Houston at October of 24, so I guess about a year and a half ago now. So
Yeah, it's been a little bit of time since I've seen Randy Ball fly anything. I'm actually very curious about this air show coming up. Let me see my calendar real quick. Let me see. Is this thing gonna load for me? It is the air show over, I believe, Cocoa Beach, April 11th and 12th for Spaceflight 250.
oh
The
yeah.
50th year of America. I think and I'm not sure, but there is some kind of talk out there. You have the NASA administrator that is brand new. He's a pilot and
Hmm.
he flies a F5 Tiger II, but it's
Hmm.
painted like the stars. This what's this thing? I'm trying to it slips my mind, but Jarek Isaacman, he has this Polaris flight team, I believe it is, use their aircraft to kind of train the future pilot astronauts of NASA. So he has an F5. Let me see if I can find a photo of his. Yeah, so it's white in the front, has the NASA logo in the middle, and then it has like a blue starry um this like paint scheme from like the leading edge of the wings all the way to the tail. So hopefully we'll be able to see that during space flight. Hopefully,
It'd be cool to see over the
definitely
beach.
definitely a cool paint scheme to go check out. Alrighty, what's a memorable crowd reaction or fan interaction you've experienced at an air show?
Brilliant question. There's a couple that stand out that are people that like I flew this airplane, and whether it's World War II or Vietnam or whatever, and just the eagerness that people have to share their story and being able to see them light up because of whatever it was that you did. Like it didn't even have to be the same airplane, but just seeing people light up and share their story as we were talking about. Those are always memorable moments. Seeing kids light up, having been a kid that lit up at an air show, anytime a kid, wants to high five you or is waving at you, pointing and waving at you, like, you're in hero status, and it just really lifts you up. But the cool part is being able to give back to that and interact. So giving them a patch or a sticker, or bringing them out and showing them the airplane, or just like, hey, thanks for coming out and taking a photo with them, to try and, as we said, instill that wonder and that amazement in the world of flight and aviation in all of its facets, whether it's prop, helicopter, jet, airliner, space, whatever the case may be. Those are moments that are hard to take away or forget, I guess. But there's probably a few more that would come to mind. Veterans, I got to meet Gene Kranz and Jim Hayes, was it the guy that was on Apollo 13? Moments with him, and then the one that I just posted in your chat in the podcast thing, that was pretty incredible. So some people may not know or have heard on other podcasts or stories I've told, but in 2009 I was invited as a senior airman to go out to Beale Air Force Base with Viper West. So I wasn't on the team, but they dressed me up like the team, and I got to do everything with the team, travel with the team, and as a part of that, on the lunch, I had gotten my barbecue sandwich as a VIP thing, right? Because we were a performer, and I sat down, and lo and behold, across from the table from me, Oscar, Chuck Yeager sat down, and I ended up having lunch with Chuck Yeager, and just to speak to him, having flown some 300 different types of airplanes, and the man, the myth, the legend that broke the sound barrier right first back in 47. That was an incredible moment that you just kind of take away, that interaction of legends and future heroes of it just culminate in a lot of pride and professionalism in being able to do what we get to do.
Yeah, definitely. When I saw that picture, it reminded me of my Eagle flight when I was a kid. EAA had, they have a local chapter at my airport that I work at now. And I actually found, I mean, the frame, I have to replace the frame because the glass is broken on it. But this is my Eagle flight certificate, and it
Oh,
was
wow.
signed by Chuck Yeager.
Wow.
He was the EAA chairman at the time, or the honorary chairman at the time. So
That's
it was
awesome.
really cool. That was 1997. I flew in a Grumman Tiger.
Yeah. It's a good airplane.
Yeah, really, really cool, like little piece of kind of history there because Chuck Yeager was the chairman at the time, and now he's I mean the right stuff. That movie is just like mind blowing.
Yeah.
Having to be the fastest man on earth at the time.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that you sent that photo, and I was like, man, that guy looks familiar, but I can't like we don't remember him in the way he looks in that photo. You know what I mean? We
Right.
remember him as a younger airman and test pilot. So really cool. I mean, that's going to be probably up here on the wall somewhere once I get that glass fixed on that. But yeah, it was cool to find that. What is one piece of advice you'd give to a young person that if they said, you know what, you've inspired me at this air show, I want to be able to join the Air Force and work on awesome planes. What do you have to say to that young person?
Boy, I mean, loads of things, but primarily, Oscar, I would probably say what I tell my airmen in all of my classes, and it's derived from, it's birthed from my 20 years experience in the Air Force, in times that I saw organizationally, right, not downplaying anything about the Air Force, but organizationally, some missteps and misdirections of how we ought to empower and equip people. And so the quote I came up with was simply, don't let anybody ever tell you that you're less than, because you strive to be more, nor that you should do more so that they can be less. And really all I'm saying is carry your weight, know your value. You may not know what a torque wrench is. You may not know what a KC-46 looks like. You may not know how you're going to react the first time you don't have internet and you're in an employed environment and you have family back home, whatever that looks like to you, right? But what I do know is that individually, fundamentally, each one of the airmen that have been entrusted to me in a classroom environment, they already bring a talent to the table, whether that's joke telling, whether that's Minecraft, whether that's maintenance, whether that's safety wire, whether that's sending an email or some sort of networking capability or communication. Like each and every person that serves in the military brings a talent to the military. And I think we would be remiss to not find way to encourage them to utilize that talent while they're serving in their capacity. And there are times that you have to put that down and we have to be mission focused and mission minded and that warrior mindset in order to get the mission done and protect the values and the things that we raised our right hand to serve in the first place. But that never takes away the fundamental aspect that people around us have talents. They have something that they bring to the table. And that diversity, that complexity of values and talents and abilities and just natural makes us what we are as a Department of War entity in no matter what branch you're serving. But it also is saying don't let people run over you. Don't let nobody answer because somebody doesn't want to deal with whatever it is that you're bringing to the table. In the respect of, try again, find somebody else, find a different way to say what it is that you're saying until you get kind of what it is that you want, because we have bright young airmen that are coming in that have wonderful ideas on how we can do things more efficiently. And by doing things more efficiently, we then get airplanes in the air. And as an Air Force airman, right, we say fight and win. I would always say if we're not flying, we're not fighting. And if we're not fighting, it's going to be really hard to win. And so right there in the beginning, don't let anybody ever tell you that you're less than because you strive to be more. You have some sort of idea to make the force better, leave your unit, your job better than it was when you got there. But don't let people also tell you that you should do more so that they can do less.
Yeah, that's 100% right there. Pretty much you nailed it. For anyone coming in to in the service or government agencies, know your worth, and you nailed it right there. You summed up the show in just that question, and I appreciate you for that. Man, I don't know what to ask now. Let me ask you, have you noticed any trends or changes in the airshow world from when you were interested in 96 or since you joined or up until now when you're looking at exiting the service?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is night air shows. I think that is the way of the future. Evening air shows, twilight air shows, and night air shows are kind of, there seems to be a big push for that and shift. And there's a way to do it right, not necessarily a way to do it wrong, but there's still some hurdles for the industry as a whole to kind of figure out what that looks like in regulations and safety, in promotion, in again from a logistical aspect, as we talked about earlier, making sure that the pilots get enough rest, that we're not doing an all-day open house from 9 a.m. to 1 o'clock, and then they only get 3 hours and have to come back for the brief and stay for another 7 hours into 10 o'clock. Like, we got to think about kind of all of the ripple effect of that. But there's definitely a shift to the night shows. And I think for the better. I mean, I've been to a couple of night shows now, and it's really incredible. The Starlight Air Show, Aerial Productions, the at the forefront, Kyle Fowler, Ghost Rider Air Shows, Eric Edrin, Mini Jet Air Shows, Tom Larkin, and that little mini jet coming online. There's a lot of people that are putting lights on their airplane and figuring out a way to be able to market themselves because this is their job. So if they can do more than one air show, then they benefit from that, as does the air show, and then the community and spectators at large. So there's a shift there. Obviously, there's also a shift. Again, we kind of talked about it, but you don't have the variety per se that you did in 96. So you're not going to go to an air show and see a CT 113 Labrador helicopter and a Huey and a CF-18 and F-14 and S-3 and an F-117. You're not going to see that anymore. And so finding ways to not have the same acts every time and swap it up is going to be a huge hurdle. But that's probably the biggest shift. Looks like David said something again.
Yeah, I love to see all shows doing night shows. The different lighting for the photography is really nice.
Yep.
Also, the masses of people. I really do love the fireworks and the laser and the drone shows.
Couldn't
Yeah,
agree
it's
more.
definitely going to attract more people to come to the shows. When I had spoke to Ghost Rider, they said that, they're pretty much booked for any new shows that want to throw in a night show on a Friday, because they've been doing it for a while. They have the experience in doing these night shows. The jet air shows, again, that show is incredible. And I believe at Stewart we had Tony Ramuto. He was in a MiG 17, and
Oh
he
yeah.
still had. I mean, he doesn't have like fireworks coming off. He had one like a little flare pop
Yep.
every so often at the Sunset Air Show.
Yep.
But you have these afterburners, in these jets. So same thing last year, Sun and Fun. They had that Twilight show. Like they had the, kind of like Sunset. You had the Growlers burning up the pattern with the afterburners. You had twos out there. So really cool to see that kind of like the transition from a day show. And we've all seen day shows. We've seen them during the morning. We've seen them during the full daylight, and then having it in a twilight, sunset, and also the night shows. There is a lot of future in drones.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how I feel about having a big drone show. It's cool to have, the drones kind of make these designs where it's like three-dimensional, really.
Mhm. Yep.
That's pretty cool. But actually having a drone just kind of flying around, that's not my thing. I'm more like afterburners and lasers,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I
Uh,
would agree.
Looks like Bradford said in 2000 when the Thunderbirds we really loved the night show, agreed that Friday night shows are add that extra appeal. Yeah,
Yeah. So
definitely
there you
does.
go. People that were on the team, they like it too. So that's
Yeah.
cool.
All right, Jeremy. We've kind of reached our end there. I mean, it's been a great show. You've kind of touched base on everything that every question. I have like one or two questions that we didn't ask, but you kind of like transitioned it with some other answers. So thank you for coming on. It's been an hour already. This is it came by pretty quick. So yeah, it's great. It's great that you came on. Congratulations on reaching 20 years this March. Thank you for all your time and service, keeping our nation safe, and helping out with these air shows.
Yeah. Yeah. So smoke on, as we say. So thank you very much, Oscar, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it and love what you're doing, and all the other shows that you had are really great. So would encourage people to continue following along Oscar and what he's doing in his endeavor. And thanks to everybody that came on and was participating or just watching me ramble about it. So really, thank you for the opportunity, and hope to see you at an air show soon.
All right, likewise. Hope to see you in a future air show. Thank you everyone for joining in. Have a good night.